Okay guys, Big Sweet here, continuing on with part 2 or part 3 of my Ruff and Tuff electric buggy conversion to gas. My last video I had the framework kind of set into the chassis. Now I've got the engine all bolted down, and as you can see I'm starting to hook up the systems. I've got the transmission put in. This is the one I was talking about that you could get off of Amazon. This seems to be a pretty decent little transmission kit. Came with the shifter cables, which I brought forth, mounted it on my front panel here. Just a heads up, if you mount it something like this, you're going to have to get a little bit longer bolt because I can't get the front cover on, having to go through the thickness of that plastic. But as you can see by all the stuff laying around, I'm getting going on hooking up all the systems. I've got the throttle system hooked up. And with this particular buggy, the throttle pedal pushed backwards. So I had to build a pivot. Let's see if I can get some light on this. To change direction. And as you can see, if the drill will stay out of my way, as the pedal pushes down, it pulls on a throttle cable that comes back and up to the carburetor. I left the linkage, the throttle manual throttle handle in place. All I did was loosen this nut so it would freewheel instead of be a friction, and it works really well. It had its own cable mount that came with it here, and then also the outer jacket mount here. So hookup was really easy. As I mentioned, the transmission is now in place and hooked up. Got the chain connected to the rear axle jack shaft. Got it all locked down. Got the belt in place. Still working on the exhaust system. 2020 hindsight. If you reference my previous video where I slotted the brackets for the transmission, I should have gone with slotting the brackets on the ladder frame and then tack welding the bolts to the angle brackets on the transmission mount. Makes it much easier to pull the transmission and loosen it for adjusting chain tension. So if I ever have to tear it back down again, I'll be changing that around. I could still do it. I could spot weld some carriage bolts to the bracket on the transmission and slot the ladder frame, but right now I'm just trying to get it all going. The battery's mounted here. I've started work on the electrical system. I'm going to extend the wiring that was part of the engine. You can see the ignition switch hanging down there. I'm going to extend the wires up through and build a new dash panel here. That square hole is where the speedometer went. And I don't know if I mentioned in my previous video, but if you look at the end of this shaft, that's the Hall effect magnet for the speed sensor from the original configuration. I just unbolted it from the motor shaft and drilled and tapped a hole in the end of that counter shaft, and I'm going to make a mount for the pickup coil. That's kind of low down low on the priority list. But right now, I'm just trying to get the mechanics and the systems hooked up. I've got a choke cable That's going to go in this front panel all the way back to here. And making progress. I still have the exhaust system to go. I've got to figure out a way to bend the exhaust pipe I got. One thing I did get is 1.25 inch flexible exhaust tubing. I've also got some heat wrap that'll go around it to kind of shield the heat. And then I ordered a muffler off of Amazon. It's a kind of a motorcycle muffler, but it's a nice shape, nice size, a little bit of directional, and this fits inside this exhaust tubing very nicely. It's a little snug, which is good. That'll help seal it. So that'll take care of my exhaust. Once I get all that done, I'm going to have to button up the wiring to get all the rest of them, convert it from electric to manual, so to speak. So that way I can turn my lights on. Somehow I want to hook up the column switch to act as my main shutoff for the battery. So I'll have to extend that wiring on through. But for now, it's trying to get the engine systems hooked up and working. You can see a little clearer of the wiring here. I also ordered a voltage regulator that will go on here, so it'll keep the battery charged. Just a little lawnmower battery there. And I went with the stock air cleaner setup for now. Amazon does have a pretty sweet looking little aftermarket billet type of muffler, air intake, air filter system. I may switch later down the road, but for now, just to get this running and working, I'm just going to stick with the stock setup. But at this point, everything seems to be coming together pretty nice. I've had the engine running, I've had the driveline working. Right now I've got one side jacked up so I can spin it, and everything spins really smooth. No funny noises or any kind of binding going on. One thing about it, if you notice the chain, how close it is to the torque converter. Two ways to work that. When you put the master links in, make sure the master link faces inside. I first put them on, and the retaining clip would hit the side of the torque converter. The other thing you could do is put a shim washer on the torque converter to get it out a little bit out past the closeness of the chain. One of the designs that I would change also, something that I hadn't considered, so heads up, if you build a ladder frame, I can't get the torque converter off because it hits this frame rail. So I wouldn't be able to get it all the way off unless I loosened the transmission mount to lift it up. So if I ever have to tear this thing down, I'm going to rebuild that. Maybe do a drop where it goes down and under, or something of that nature. So that way I can get the torque converter driven pulley off if I ever need to. But that's about all for now. Once I get it up and running, I'll post a video of it all working and driving around, and we'll let you all know. Bye for now.